All right, guys, we have a lot of action going on in the crypto space, and it's not all necessarily good or bullish. We do have what seems to be a downside setup shaping up. I've been putting out some community posts, and I've been hinting at this over my last few updates on different altcoins, including the Ethereum Classic update I just released. And I also posted a Bitcoin Cash update via community post in case I don't get around to making a video. But we're going to cover a vast variety of coins in order to show what the setup looks like. So we had our official bottom on May 12th. We went over the anatomy of the crash, and we all bottomed at the same time. The stock market did more or less as well, overnight hours of May 12th, while the stock market bottomed, I think, a little earlier in the day. And we had what looked like a promising rally, but then it kind of ran out of momentum, ran out of steam. Unlike the stock market, we didn't really get a really convincing five-wave rally. A couple of ways you could count this as five waves. I know I kept pointing out that Bitcoin Cash had the most convincing five-wave rally, but it had a really strange structure to it with a really strange fourth wave, a spike up for the fifth wave, and we haven't really had much lift ever since. So right now, it looks like the alt pattern is about to come to fruition. We can count this as a three-wave ABC pattern up. It still looks very unorthodox, a lot of sideways movement, but sideways is typically a sign of consolidation, because if we were really done with our bottom, we would have started to break through some of the supports overhead, support some of the resistances overhead. Those are the tests that we're looking to pass overhead, and we haven't passed them so far. In Bitcoin, we arguably already have a 1-2 downside setup. This could easily count as an impulse. You got your 1-2, third wave, fourth wave bounce, and a fifth wave down, and a really choppy second wave up, and possibly a nested 1-2. So if that is the case, all the proportions fit, we may already be in the middle of our third wave down. And based on this, that means Bitcoin could get down to about where we were before. Our official bottom was about 25,400. We're going to look at the big picture just to pinpoint how low we could go. We came very close to the bottom of our box on our, on the low we've had so far. Bottom of the box sits at about 24,800. I think 24,400 is the support. Now, we could spike a little bit below our support without compromising the overall bullish pattern. And, well, we need to see some follow through on this. Again, I don't expect there to be too much lower to go, because we've already come low enough. We hit our targets, and the same applies in Ethereum and some of the other coins as well. So I'm not going to spend all my time on Bitcoin, but that's my expectation. Shifting to Ethereum, the setup is almost very similar. We've had very similar patterns in Bitcoin and Ethereum. The altcoins have kind of done their own separate thing, which we're going to go over. But here too, we have a downside setup. Our official bottom on Ethereum was 1696, give or take a few dollars. And we have a 1-2. And similarly, we also have a nested 1-2. So we are very likely already in our third wave down, and we got some supports. This is projecting about 1742. So for both Ethereum and Bitcoin, the linear chart doesn't project as low as the log chart does, which we'll look at momentarily. But once we break our support about 1812, look for Ethereum to follow through. There's a potential for a double bottom, but I think it's more likely we're going to see a lower low. Shifting to the big picture for Ethereum, we actually didn't come as close to support with Ethereum, because technically our support was way down at 1151. That's the 0.764 extension of our bigger 1-2 from the past year, 2021. So we have a bit more room to go down. The bottom of our box falls about 1530. So I could see this striking the bottom of the box and bouncing back up pretty quick. If we go any lower, there is some more cushion below. So those are Bitcoin and Ethereum. Again, it doesn't mean we compromise the pattern, because in Ethereum, we had a really big B wave, and we're following pretty sharply in our C wave. In Bitcoin itself, very shallow second wave. So having a deeper than standard fourth wave would not necessarily compromise the bigger rally setup. Now, shifting to some of our altcoins, I keep mentioning Bitcoin Cash. On this coin, we did have what looked like five waves up, but it wasn't a very clean or convincing pattern. So I kept the red pattern on the chart, because it was, there's a lot of likelihood, high chance that we would pull back. And right now we seem to be following through on red. So we have, again, pretty convincing five-wave impulse down, our first wave. Second wave bounce, proportionally correct. And we're about to break through this support zone. That's our pivot. So about $184. We're sneaking very close to that. Once we pass that, we're very likely going to follow through to the downside. And here too, we actually do project a little bit lower than our official low. Bitcoin Cash hit 150. We could go down to 134 based on the linear projection. But when we go on the big picture chart, it's a little bit different, calculates differently. We did spike into this box. We pierced into it, but there's a little bit more cushion below. We could see this thing go down to about 105. That would be my feeling. If we see a really, really powerful spike down, we could go as low as the bottom of this box, $74. So I have that written as my orange alternate pattern. So again, red primary means we're done with the crash. Orange is the lower low. This is the same nomenclature and color code I'm using across all my crypto coins. Red is the primary that we follow through on. Orange, if we go lower, orange will be the primary. Other than that, they're the same exact structure. Just means we have a little bit lower to go on our C wave. So that's Bitcoin Cash, which hope to have an update out by tonight or maybe tomorrow. Ethereum Classic, I'm not going to go over. Very similar situation, Bitcoin Cash, although Ethereum Classic does move very violently, a bit delayed, but usually moves very quickly. Check out my update on that if you'd like to see more detail. I'm going to go to Dash. This is another one I haven't done an update on yet. And here too, same kind of behavior where you could convincingly count this as 5 up. We did have a higher high up here, but we're getting some downside follow through. And Dash, as much as I like the upside pattern, I've made that very clear in my previous videos, is in a very precarious position. EOS broke its long-term support. Dash came closer than any other coin except for EOS. So if we have a 1-2 in place, we don't quite have the nested 1-2, but we've broken through our pivot zone. So 55.68 would have been our 0.764 extension off of this 1-2 to the downside. And we're projecting, just like with Bitcoin and Ethereum, not quite as low as the low we hit, but in our big picture, we would presumably be targeting a bit lower. Dash is tricky because we actually fell completely through our target box, and we got a support below at about $34. And I guess part of me wishes or hopes it doesn't get below $38. That would actually be the 1-to-1 ratio. So you got your A wave, your B wave, and the 1.0 extension of that would take us to about $38. So if I had to give you a number, I think 38 is a likely downside target because we don't want to break 34. That would be really bad because that means the entire thing is probably a C wave, with this whole thing being some kind of a B wave bounce, which means that just like with EOS, this entire correction has not ended yet. That means we have some more downside ahead. So please be mindful if you have a lot of funds in Dash. I know it's one of my bigger positions. I will be considering taking some off the table in case we have more follow through, with the expectation of buying back in once we have the dip. But like I mentioned, if you're looking to buy the dip, or if you've held through the correction so far, it may be better just to hold through it, especially if you're not the kind of person who's going to be staring at the screen all the time, like I will be. It's very risky to sell at the bottom and have the market run away from you. So this is Stellar Lumens. I did a video on this not too long ago. Had a very optimistic tone because the pattern looked very impulsive. It was convincingly 5 up, although one could argue that, a third wave should have gone longer and higher than it did. Maybe the first wave was back here. Any way you cut it, this is probably more convincingly an ABC up, especially with the downside follow through. I know we could argue that it's actually a second wave pullback, but the action we're seeing across the rest of the crypto space is giving me pause. This looks more like possibly a 1-2. I know I don't have the nomenclature written there, but I'll just draw it on here for you guys. It could be maybe a first wave down here, second wave, and then we would have our third wave somewhere down here, maybe right here, fourth wave, and then our fifth wave would still be projecting not quite as low as we've been, but Stellar's been moving a little bit differently. I'm actually going to color that orange just to show that's a different pattern. So if we follow through, if we fall through the bottom, I think about 11 cents, that would make it much more likely we have a bit lower to go for Stellar. When we shift the big picture chart, this is one that also just pierced the top of the box. So we have a bit more cushion to fall lower. It's not as scary as some of the other coins. I have the orange alt pattern here that we could go a little deeper in the box. And when we project down, let me see, I'm actually going to project our fibs from the correction from the top. We have our A wave down, B wave bounce. So again, we did hit our 1.0 extension. 8 cents could be a very likely target. If we have enough bearishness, possibly go down to 6 cents. So I still would expect us to go no lower than the top half of this box. That would be the orange alt pattern, which for some reason I don't have noted on the chart. I'm going to add that on there. So the red pattern would be there. Orange pattern calls for a little bit lower. Now, if we break down below the bottom of the box, there may be reason to change our perspective. But as I mentioned, until we have our pattern invalidate completely, we must remain bullish. But as the data changes, must change your perspective, your opinion. Final coin I'm going to go over is EOS. So I did a rally. I did a video on this not too long ago. This too could have been considered to have 5 waves up. Didn't really break any Elliott wave rules, but here too, we're having some downside follow-up. It has had more of a sideways consolidation than a lot of the other coins, but right now we are, well, we're spiking down pretty good here. We're down to about $1.25, something like that. And if this is a first wave with a second wave bounce, it's probably better up here. If that is the case, then we may have a nested 1-2 setup here as well that hit all the numbers as they should. So expect this to get down to $1.15 relatively quickly, $1.07. And then the bottom is actually projecting to about 99 cents. So that's lower than where we hit on May 12th. Big picture, where would we likely hit? Well, obviously, this was the one coin that absolutely did break its long-term support. That was at 128. We spiked well below that. How much lower could we go? This really depends. If I put my Fibonacci on extension tool on here, so let's say that's the A wave, about 297, B wave bounce. The 1-to-1 ratio would have put us right at that red line. We clearly broke it. So we may see some more downside ahead. 86 cents would be another significant Fibonacci extension target, possibly 68 cents. I'm going to lean towards the 86-cent mark that we could see it go as low. And full disclaimer here, while I did buy back a lot of my coins, EOS is one that I want to see a bit more confirmation on before I buy back in. So I'm going to be watching this one very carefully. I know there's other altcoins, but none of them seem to have any other particularly revealing clues. So I've kind of gone over all the big picture coins just to show where we're going. Again, I've been using Bitcoin Cash as my proxy. So we are creeping closer and closer to this box. I'll reiterate, it's not the time to panic sell. Now, if you really need that cash for something, maybe you're planning to make a down payment on a house, paying off some debt, buying a car, maybe it's a good time to sell to avoid any bloodshed. But again, it's very risky to sell when we're this low, because when we spike down, we might see a powerful reversal. We're certainly looking for more downside. I went over the S&P 500. This is the futures chart in which we had a very clean 5-wave impulse up, but you have this giant straight shot down. There's no pullbacks within. So this is very likely an A wave down with a big, possibly a B wave coming tomorrow, and a C wave to finish things off. There's also the possibility that this is actually a first wave down with a second wave and much deeper to go. Not totally sure, but we have the same setup. Now, that doesn't mean that this couldn't reverse and give us a powerful third wave, but right now signs are pointing at this as being a downside setup. So we're gonna have to keep our eyes on this. Again, follow your strategy. If you're looking to buy the dip, you can try to time it. I may be looking to do that. I did mention I may be unloading some of my positions again that I bought the dip on. So as of yet, I haven't fully figured out my whole plan yet. I'm going to be doing that throughout the evening into the next few days. But as I mentioned, things do reverse quickly. And finally, if you're looking for a safer place to buy, I always say look for a 5-wave impulse. So assuming we do go down here, we want to see some kind of a 5-wave impulsive bounce. And once you have that, we want to see our 3-wave correction after that, which would be our classic Elliott wave 1-2 setup. So, something like this. I know the colors look all funky, but if we follow through on orange, that's what it would look like. Once you have that, and then you exceed the top of the impulse, that's usually a very strong sign that the crash is over. It's the same in every asset class. We look for the same kind of thing in the stock market, in silver, gold, uranium, whatever it is. So lots of activity going on. Just like I said, stay on your toes, be vigilant, but don't panic. Worst thing you can do is panic during a crash. So subscribe, that way don't miss any updates. Till next time, thank you for watching and happy trading.